With the latest agriculture news from across the state and nation, it's time for the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. Here's your host, Sabrina Halverson.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning on the AgNet News Hour. Coming up later, addressing farm labor challenges through technology. But to start out today, the World Agriculture Forum awarded the second World Agriculture Prize in Mumbai, India on Wednesday. The World Agriculture Prize recognizes the individuals and institutions with exceptionally significant and globally impacting achievements in the field of agriculture. World Agriculture Forum Board Chair and former Senate member in the Netherlands, as well as Science Council Chairman, Dr. Rudy Rabinich, spoke about the award.
And we have all seen that sustainable development and food security is widely adopted and seen as the most important issues in the coming decades. And so it's very nice to know also that many developments are oriented to a productive agriculture with minimal side effects. And so the strategy of the FAO is now optimization and minimization. Optimization means doing the things at the right way, at the right place, with the right means, such that you have optimal productivity. And minimization of the use of external inputs, such that the effects per unit of product are much lower than has been in the recent past. That's what we're trying to do. We are also aware that unsustainability may be due to wisdom and maybe due to poverty worldwide, due to wisdom, overuse of external inputs, pesticides, for example, underuse of external inputs because you do not have the money to buy it. That is unsustainability due to poverty happening everywhere in the world. And now we are here at a critical moment because in this state, which has the size, which is bigger in number of people than France, Germany, and England together, we have now seen the enormous activity of the leader of the state, and as a recognition to the visionary policies and massive scale of programs related to environment and sustainable development, irrigation and agriculture, bamboo and millets, farming, women empowerment, and rural development initiated by the government of Maharashtra under the visionary leadership of the Chief Minister, Mr. Eknath Shindle, which created massive impact on the ground, empowering the farmers, youth, and rural women. I am pleased to announce that the World Agriculture Forum has decided to confer upon the second World Agriculture Prize to Mr. Shindle.
In order to be eligible for the award, the nominee must establish exceptionally significant and globally impacting achievements through policy, technology, development, or business, which resulted in a demonstrable improvement in the agriculture system or increase in the quantity, quality, or availability of food for a substantial number of people, or improvement in a quality of life for farmers or rural masses. This year's recipient, the Chief Minister of the Indian state of Maharashtra, Eknath Shinde.
And today I feel really proud to get this World Agriculture Prize. I am receiving this award on the behalf of all the farmers of Maharashtra. It's because of their dedication and efforts. Maharashtra is selected for this award. I want to mention here that our state Maharashtra is bigger in area, population, and economy than many other nations in the world. Our state is the growth engine of our nation, India, Bharat. We are giving the biggest contribution in GDP, foreign direct investment, employment generation, and development. Today, we are on top in education, healthcare, agriculture, and infrastructure. In last week, World Economic Forum founder Mr. Klaus Schwab came to meet me. He signed the MOU with our MMRDA. MMRDA is playing a key role in the development. It's a big achievement for us and our state.
In full transparency to our listeners, I do have a connection to this story in that I have been nominated and now invited to join the World Agricultural Forum Council as one of 50 international agricultural experts. You are listening to the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson. In today's National Spotlight, the Northern Crops Institute hosted a webinar on Wednesday to review the latest WASDE report from USDA. During his closing comments, Tanner Imke, lead economist for grains and oilseeds with CoBank, said a bullish market opportunity may present itself to producers if they look at deferred contracts on the futures board.
Obviously, the weather and the other export hubs like South America and the Black Sea region are key. That's going to be a huge driver going forward. Like I mentioned earlier, if those droughts continue into October, November, then the market is absolutely going to be building back in some risk premium into the market. And so that might provide some marketing opportunities. If you're not willing to gamble on the weather, though, around the world, I do want to remind people that one slide I had on the carries. Okay, if you're not happy with the spot price, you got to look at those deferred prices. You got to look at those December contracts or the March contracts. What is the market paying you to store? Okay, you're going to be able to pick up a higher price. Your cost of storage is going to be going down. Especially with the Federal Reserve cutting rates this week and probably cutting rates going forward, the cost of money is going to go down, and that's the major cost of storage. So I would say if you're not in the gambling mode, look at that carry trade. Or look at that storage trade, okay? Talk to your market advisor about what that looks like and how you can profit on that, because those deferred contracts later in the marketing year are absolutely offering opportunities. Now, HRW wheat is the outlier there, but I think the expectation is that those carries are going to be building back over time. But as for all the other grains, I think there's some marketing opportunities there for storage.
While the promise of increased biofuels production, like sustainable aviation fuel and renewable diesel, is seen as a long-term supportive feature for demand and price, Imke said the U.S. still has to remain competitive on the export front.
We've got to be engaging with trade policy. We have to be competitive globally to move our crops, because I don't think that domestic policy is going to be the answer. We've got to be competitive in export business if we really want to move our products. And so I think, there's obviously a positive story here with renewable diesel. We've seen growth in demand for ethanol. We've seen rising exports of ethanol to other countries that have biofuel programs, specifically Canada. So I don't mean to say that there's no opportunities longer term there. There definitely are. But I think I think it would be dangerous for us to just hang our hats on biofuels and say this is what's going to save the American farmer. That's a mistake. We got to be out there in the world competing.
Looking long-term into the next 10 years, Imke says supply issues will likely play a larger role in market direction compared to demand issues.
Just because we're seeing some slowdown in major economies like China and their demographical issues, the aging population. They've got a huge amount of toxic real estate debt. And so that with China, the world's biggest, one of the world's biggest economies, second biggest economy, having trouble economically, I'm concerned there. I'm wondering what the opportunities are with India. Can we shift focus over to India as the next export opportunity? What's going to happen with Brazil? They still have a fair amount of acreage there. They can tap into if they want to. So with the combination of slowing economies, specifically with China, and the acreage expansion capacity in Brazil, I'm more of that bias that we're going to be in a supply issue or supply surplus issue going forward. All of that can change very quickly with weather. All of that can change very quickly with geopolitics, but we're not able to project those things very well. We're not able to predict weather and geopolitics with any consistency. So we just kind of have to look at those issues that we know about, and thus that's why I say I'm guilty of recency bias. We're in a supply push environment right now. I don't see the Chinese economy improving. I don't see Brazil going away as an export competitor. So as a result, my bias is to say, yeah, we're going to be having to, we've got some export struggles going forward. Now, that being said, there are some other opportunities out there. I don't want to be completely bad on that. We've got Southeast Asia, a growth spot. We have India, like I mentioned, as a growth spot. We have Africa as a growth spot for exports. There's a lot of structural issues that we have to deal with in terms of those countries replacing China. No two countries are the same, so it takes work in engaging with those countries to build a stronger export base and with trade policy. But all of those things really take time, and that doesn't happen quickly.
Meanwhile, Rod Bain reports on some potential shocks to the ag economy.
While tight margins are currently experienced by many farm producers, as reflected in USDA's September farm income forecast, Agriculture Department Chief Economist Seth Meyer told an audience at this week's AgriPulse Ag Outlook Forum in Kansas City, market shocks could lead to price spikes. However,
I don't know what the next shock will be, nor do I know what other countries' responses will be to those shocks.
Among potential sources for market shocks in the near future,
we've seen containerized costs rise, and that has been in the past a problem for us in terms of overall containerized ag exports. So a challenge here, seeing some challenges for our export competitiveness through low Mississippi River levels. We've seen drought creep back into a lot of areas that we hadn't seen it 6 months ago. Certainly, we've got some uncertainties when it comes to drought and prices for margins in the coming year.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
That's today's National Spotlight. Now here's the livestock report. 2025 could bring more hikes in cattle and beef prices. Gary Crawford has more.
Beef cattle supplies continue to shrink, and prices, while they have cooled off a little bit recently, they are still
historically high.
And they will continue to increase next year. This from USDA's Outlook Chairman Mark Jekanowski. He says the recent pullback in cattle prices comes partly from
concerns by packers about beef demand. Given these high prices and given some uncertainty about the economy, they're being pretty cautious in terms of their buying habits because there's concerns about whether consumers are going to maintain this strong demand. So that's put some recent pressure on prices.
But USDA says beef production is going to fall again next year, sending prices even higher. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
We will be back in just a moment with more agriculture news. Coming up in a few moments, we'll have today's This Land of Ours report, but first, more of the day's agriculture news. And with a preview of what you'll hear today on AgNet West, here's Brian German.
Researchers at Colorado State University are working on a new type of herbicide to tackle Palmer amaranth, a tough weed that's causing big problems for farmers. The $650,000 project funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture aims to create a biological herbicide using advanced synthetic biology techniques. The goal is to replace traditional chemical herbicides as concerns about overall efficacy and environmental impact increase. Weed challenges cost American farmers approximately $33 billion in losses every year, with Palmer amaranth a prime example as the weed impacts a variety of crops. CSU's team plans to engineer a biological herbicide that targets the weed's specific genes, effectively killing it without harming nearby crops. Over the next 4 years, they'll experiment with RNA molecules and plant viruses to develop this new solution. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has released updated guidelines to improve how companies support claims about how animals are raised and the environmental impact of meat and poultry products. These claims include labels like raised without antibiotics, grass-fed, and climate-friendly. The new guidelines encourage companies to use third-party certifications to ensure these claims are accurate and not misleading. A recent USDA study found that 20% of cattle labeled raised without antibiotics actually had antibiotic residues, highlighting the need for stricter oversight. In response, the guidelines now recommend that companies conduct regular testing and maintain stronger documentation to support their claims. The USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service will be closely monitoring these claims and will take enforcement action against companies that fail to meet the standards. Collaborative efforts are underway that seek to address some of the short and long-term labor challenges in farming. Chief Innovation Officer for UC Agriculture and Natural Resources, Gabe Yahtzee, said addressing labor issues requires a multifaceted approach.
We're losing farmers. Farmers are aging out of the system. Both farmers and farm workers are saying, don't go into farming. It's really hard business. And so we're trying to figure out, how can we get farm owners, farm managers, farm workers, and then everybody who has to do with the farm supply chain, to make farming just a better, safer, more exciting, more profitable industry to be in, but then also to just make great jobs, that both help make farming those things, but also make the work environment profitable and fun, and whether you own a farm or whether you're providing a solution or a service to a farm.
Registration is currently open for the 2024 California Citrus Conference. The event is a one-day conference designed specifically for growers and will showcase the outstanding research efforts ongoing for the benefit of California citrus growers and industry. This year's event will take place on Wednesday, October 23rd at the Visalia Convention Center. The conference is an invaluable opportunity to learn, connect with fellow growers, and stay involved with innovative research. Speakers will include Sandeepa Gautam with UC Agriculture and Natural Resources, Melinda Klein with the Citrus Research Board, Jim Ataskevich from UC Riverside, and Casey Kramer with California Citrus Mutual. Continuing education units will also be available to conference attendees pending approval. More information about the conference is available on the upcoming events page at agnetwest.com. I'm Brian German for AgNet West Radio Network.
Is the farm income forecast part of an economic cyclical pattern? That's coming up on This Line of Ours.
Last week's farm income forecast from USDA reflects what Chief Economist Seth Meyer calls a cost-price squeeze and part of the cyclical nature of farm economics.
We go through these periods where we have a shock in the market, prices jump, input prices follow them. As farmers do what they do best, which is produce their way through it, those prices fall and input prices tend to remain sticky. So we go through these periods. We saw it in the 2007-8 period. We saw it in the 2010 to 13 period, and followed by a number of years of pretty tight margins.
The chief economist at this week's AgriPulse Ag Outlook Forum in Kansas City acknowledged that a tighter margin situation for producers seems to be developing at a faster pace than what he saw during the last farm income forecast in February. Although market shocks, such as those created by the Ukrainian conflict or global pandemic, could lead to higher prices for commodities. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
You're listening to the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson. USDA's science and research strategy offers not only priorities to address hunger, nutrition, and health, but examples of the role scientific innovation plays in these efforts. Rod Bain reports.
When it comes to addressing hunger and improving nutrition and health in our nation and our globe, research and innovation is key.
We cannot food, fuel, and clothe the world with our status quo agricultural systems. We need 21st century solutions.
And Director of USDA's Office of the Chief Scientist, Deirdre Chester, says that is where efforts behind the Agriculture Department's Science and Research Strategy for a 4-year period from 2023 to 2026 offers innovative approaches and potential solutions to U.S. and global food security. Speaking at this year's USDA Agricultural Outlook Forum, Chester reminded the audience of the strategy's priorities and examples of each priority within the R&D realm, starting with what research into and acceleration of innovative tech and practices look like.
USDA scientists are studying how to optimize the use of biotechnology, which includes genetic engineering to improve crop production efficiency. They're looking at biomanufacturing, turn agricultural waste into energy and bioproducts. We're also studying precision agriculture technologies like AI, robotics, sensors, GPS, and drones to automate currently labor-intensive farm practices.
Regarding study of climate-smart solutions,
the Agricultural Innovation Mission for Climate, USDA, the entire U.S. government, and our international partners are fostering ag innovation around the world to dually fight climate change and hunger. One of these projects is the Innovation Fermentation Technologies for Scalable, Sustainable Protein Production that's led by Alternative Protein International.
Research involving nutrition security and health includes
Ascend for Better Health, a virtual center of excellence that aims to reduce the burden of diet-related chronic diseases like cancer by enhancing precision nutrition research and translating that information back to the communities it impacts.
What are examples of scientific study as far as cultivating resilient ecosystems are concerned?
USDA is developing new crop varieties that are more resilient to drought and extreme weather, more resilient to pests and diseases, and that sequester more carbon.
Then there is technology transfer and other methods of application and translation to convert research into action.
A huge part of how we make this happen is through our partnerships with public and land-grant universities on R&D, our partnerships with the Cooperative Extension Service, who bring research and tools straight from labs to farms across the nation, and our partnerships with the public sector on developing technologies which they can help commercialize and bring to the marketplace.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This segment is brought to you by Live Earth Products. To get to know a little more about Live Earth Products, we're talking on the phone today with Vice President Russell Taylor. Let's talk about LEP. What are the key benefits of your products for farmers in the Western Zone?
So Live Earth Products, we mine and manufacture a ingredient called humate. Now, humate is rich in organic acids called humic acid and fulvic acid. Now, those are common components in your soil organic matter. And here in the Western United States, unlike, those places around the Mississippi going east, actually have very low organic matter. Now, your organic matter is key think of it as the pantry in the soil. So it's key to water retention, nutrient retention, nutrient cycling, microbial activity, those kind of things. So anything that's going to impact the increase in soil organic matter will also impact things like water holding capacity and nutrient holding capacity, which is a big deal here in the West when water is not as abundant as it is in the east side of the United States.
Now, what about nitrate? I know nitrate can be a problem in some soils. So how do LEP products help reduce the nitrate problem on saturated soils?
So Live Earth Products is not unique in how we affect nitrogen, but any organic matter will help retain nitrogen. So typically the mechanisms that we use are blending the nitrogen with the humate. So what happens is the nitrogen will attach to the humic acid, and you will see less of the processes that degrade or volatilize nitrogen. So nitrogen will either convert to a gas or it'll be converted by microbes into a nitrate and leach to the soil. So the longer you have that product is not being volatilized or converted, the longer opportunity for that nutrient to be used by the plant. We have university testing that has shown that when you blend these organic acids with the nutrient, you give that plant a longer opportunity to use that nutrient before it's lost, volatilized, or converted.
To get to know more about Live Earth products, you can visit them online at liveearth.com. That is spelled LIVEARTH.com. This year's selection as the U.S. Capitol Christmas tree and its upcoming journey is unique on several fronts. We return to Rod Bain for this report.
What is unique about the 2024 U.S. Capitol Christmas tree? Not the dimensions, as the selected tree must meet specific height requirements by the architect of the Capitol. Yet, in so many ways, the Sitka spruce coming from Alaska presents several firsts. One of them is not location, though.
For Alaska, this is really only the second year that we've been able to do this. The first time was in 2015 when the Capitol Christmas tree came from the Chugach National Forest.
Yet Brandon Rail of the U.S. Forest Service in Alaska points out that the location of the 2024 Capitol Christmas tree is a first, an island on the Tongass National Forest. And how was this tree discovered?
We started utilizing a lot of new technology to really narrow down the search for our tree candidates. Because the Tongass National Forest is so big, encompassing multiple islands, we used LiDAR scans that was taken by drones. And with that data, we were able to narrow down our search to individual trees that met the height criteria and a variety of other criteria that we use.
The island locale of the capital Christmas tree also presents logistical challenges to be met with innovative solutions. For instance,
we have to mobilize all the equipment for the harvest by barge, get it over to the other island, do the harvest.
Also unique is how the chosen tree is to be harvested.
Instead of doing a traditional harvest where we take the chainsaw and cut the tree at the base, we're going to harvest the entire tree, including the root wad. And we're going to lay that down on the trailer and pack that root wad with materials to hold the moisture. And we have a watering system that is being developed by one of the local STEM groups that is going to keep the water flowing to that root wad for the entire duration of the trip.
Another first for a U.S. Capitol Christmas tree, part of its journey to Washington, D.C. will be done by barge.
Barge everything back to Wrangell, prepare the tree there, put it on a bigger barge, ship it down to Seattle, transfer it back onto the truck, and then we can hit the road for a nearly 3,000-mile journey across the lower 48 from coast to coast.
The 2-week journey resulting in this year's Capitol Christmas tree arriving at the Capitol grounds the week before Thanksgiving. More details about this year's tree and its scheduled trip are available at this web address, www.uscapitolchristmastree, all one word.com. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This is the AgNet News Hour, and we will be back in just a moment with more agriculture news. You're listening to the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson. More information into a new disease found in California almonds is coming out as Dr. Florent Trias joined the Almond Journey podcast. Here's a portion of that podcast.
In today's episode, we're talking about a new fungus found in California orchards, red leaf blotch. To get the latest on this disease, what its impacts are, and what growers can do about it, we're talking to UC A&R Associate Cooperative Extension Specialist, Dr. Florent Trias, and Almond Board Senior Specialist in Pest Management, Dr. Lauren Fan. According to a report produced by a collaborative effort between UC Davis and UC Cooperative Extension, red leaf blotch caused by the fungal pathogen Polystigma amygdalinum was detected in California almond orchards on the border of Merced and Madera counties in late May 2024. Previously known for its impact on almonds in the Mediterranean and the Middle East, red leaf blotch's presence in California has certainly raised alarms. Today we'll go over what we know so far about red leaf blotch and its impacts, what this means for California almonds, and what growers need to know to manage this disease in their orchards. Just one quick disclaimer here. The information around this disease is developing fast, being new in California orchards, and this interview took place on July 25th, 2024. So what you're about to hear is the latest information that's available about this disease in July of 2024 and its presence in California. But with that, we'll kick things off with Dr. Florent Trias, who goes by Flo for short, giving a brief introduction to the disease.
Yes, the disease is called almond red leaf blotch. It's quite prevalent in Europe, in parts of Spain and Portugal. The disease has been occurring there for several years and decades. It's also very widespread in the Middle East. So there's been a lot of research, particularly in Spain, investigating this almond disease. However, for California, it's really a first finding. And again, the only knowledge we have about this disease, again, is coming from research in Spain.
And what is the kind of the body of knowledge about it there? Do they have pretty extensive research on it since it has been around there for so long?
Yes, so, tools for disease detection have been developed. The basic biology and disease cycle of this disease also has been figuring out. And thanks also, there's been some research about best fungicide and best timing of application of the fungicide for disease management. So there's definitely a strong background of research already available, mostly from various research institutes in Spain.
And could you talk a little bit about what the impact of this disease has been there in the years that they've had it? What, help us understand what this risk might look like.
Yes, so I don't have any figures when it comes to economic impact. However, the way it impacts an orchard or a tree these red blotch symptoms on leaf basically will evolve to become necrotic, and the leaves will fall. So this is basically lead to tree defoliations, which certainly can impact the photosynthetic activity of the tree. And of course, this will lead to overall depletions in carbohydrate and storage reserve from the tree. So overall, this disease will lead to a significant yield reduction when it affects the orchards. And I've been right now going up and down the valley and looking at some of the orchards that we have here with the disease this year. And I can tell that some of these orchards have almost every tree and every leaf on the tree infected in these orchards. So it definitely has a significant impact. And it seems to be really aggressive here to the almond cultivars that we have in California.
And can you help us understand? It's a fungal pathogen. It's on the leaves. How does it ultimately impact yield? Kind of what's the mechanism by which that happens?
Well, the way it impacts yield is, it damages leaves. Trees will go through early defoliation. So all of that basically, again, reduce the overall photosynthetic activity in the tree. With early defoliation, also you have a depletions of reserves such as starch and carbohydrates. And so on the following year, tree will have again less reserve to start a new growing cycle. And so basically early defoliation basically has a high energy cost, and that's how this overall affected the tree capacity to yield almond nuts.
Interesting. So if you're seeing the symptoms this year, will it affect the yield this year and next year?
Yeah, because what's happening is trees are starting to defoliating around now, right? We're just at the end of July right now, and trees already are starting to defoliating in orchards that have a high infection. So we're talking here again about really early defoliation, where defoliation will naturally occur, in November or eventually December, right? So this is how the tree is kind of losing its capacity to store a reserve for the next season.
Okay, yeah. And Lauren, let's bring you in here too. Maybe talk about from your perspective with ABC when this kind of got on your radar and what the response from the almond board has been.
So we found out about it like a day or two after Flo did, because I had met with some PCAs who had noticed the red spots on leaves, and they had said they had just sent it to Flo. So it was pretty shortly after Flo found out. So it was on our radar pretty early. And I mean, from the moment we found out, it was on high alert of, okay, what do we know? Making sure we're in contact with Flo and with others in Europe to see how they're managing it. So we're taking it very seriously and wanting to make sure that we have research funds available so that there can be work done to see how we can develop management tactics for this new pest in California.
You're listening to the AgNet News Hour. We continue now with the Almond Journey podcast.
And Flo, where have we seen it so far? And, I know you mentioned some of the orchards where it's like every leaf has these symptoms, but how widespread is it throughout the state that we know so far?
Yeah, so far we have found it as north as San Joaquin County, particularly around the Stockton area. We found it also just south of that in Stanislaus County. And then he was also spotted in Merced. Actually, Merced was the original finding. We also found it in Madera, and also we received sample lately from Fresno. So it seems to be actually quite widespread right now in multiple county, northern to central San Joaquin Valley.
And when did these leaf samples start to come in? I mean, we're talking now July 25th. Is this the point in the growing season where you would normally first see symptoms, or has this been something that has been, detected for a while now?
Well, the first call we got was at the end of May. I would expect that symptoms will start to initiate starting from late April to mid-May. That's around sort of the initiation of the first symptoms. Basically, this pathogen or disease has a latent phase. Infection will occur early in the spring where trees start to push new leaflets. So that's usually the time of infection when the tree put new leaflets. And then for this just few months around post-petal fall, that's sort of the period that these leaves are highly susceptible for infections. And the pathogen has about 35 to 40-day sort of a latent phase. That means that following infection, symptoms will only appear after these 35, 40-day periods. And so, yes, again, when the timing where we expect to see the onset and the first symptoms developing in the orchard will be around, I would say, mid-May.
And as far as the stages of the disease, is the first thing we're going to see these red spots and then it ends in defoliation? Are there different things we should be looking for throughout the season?
I mean, right now, for growers that want to know if they have the disease in the orchard, right now is the good time actually to scout the tree. You will see at this time of the year, again, orange blotches on leaves that turn necrotic and dark brown. And they are, very unique. They cannot be confused with any other disease that we have here in California. Almond, very unique symptoms, red blotch, orange color, and these necrotic leaves that start to be curly. So I think it's very important for, growers in terms of thinking disease management and prevention next year. The first step will be to start scouting the orchard this year, right now, to determine if the pathogen and the disease is actually present in orchard. We've seen a lot of the different and the main cultivars actually that we have in California seems to be susceptible. We found the disease in nonpareil, we found the disease in Carmel and Monterey that are obviously widely planted in California, but we also noticed the disease in Butte, Padre, and Fritz cultivars. So it seems that, some of the main and most planted cultivars that we have in California are susceptible.
Okay. And you did say right now is actually a great time to scout for this. Any particular advice you'd give to growers who want to make sure they're doing a good job of scouting for this?
I mean, if the pathogen is present in an orchard or the disease is present, it'll be very obvious to see it. But growers can eventually start from the edges of an orchard next to a neighboring orchard, if there is neighboring orchards, to start scouting and looking for these red blotch symptoms. And then progress within the orchards and get a sense if there are symptoms anywhere. But if you come from a neighboring orchard, I would suspect first to find it on the edge. So the edge will be a good place to start and move inside the orchards. And so, looking at 100 trees or so should be enough to get a first sense already if the disease is present in one orchard block.
And Lauren, from your perspective, what's the Almond Board's, next move to support folks like Flo who are working on the research on this and to work with PCAs and growers?
Right now, we're looking for research proposals. So, focusing on the new invasive pests, so like Carpophilus is a priority in this call for research proposals. And so will this red leaf blotch. And so making sure that we have funds available, as well as making sure there's materials to disseminate to growers and PCAs with any new information that we have as it comes out.
Again, that was just a portion of this episode of the Almond Journey podcast. You can hear more and get other episodes by searching Almond Journey wherever you get your podcasts. That's today's top agriculture news. I'm Sabrina Halverson. Thank you for sharing your morning with us.
To get more information on the topics you heard today, visit AgNet West online at agnetwest.com. You can also stay connected by following us on our social media at AgNet West on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also find our broadcast team of Brian German and Sabrina Halverson on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for listening to the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. AgNet West Radio Network, your primary choice for agriculture news.